多謝各位。而家呢就剛剛夠法定人數，咁我哋開會啦。議程第一，通過會議紀要，就請委員通過2013年3月4號嘅會議紀要，即係立法會文件 CB1 1390/1213號文件。截至目前為止呢，秘書處並冇收到任何修訂嘅建議，所以請問大家係咪是否同意通過？多謝各位。咁而家通過嗰個會議紀要啦。就去到議程第二，自上次會議發出嘅資料文件，秘書處呢就
The Secretariat has received the following papers, and they are CB1, 1238, 1213/01 Registry Statistics for May 2013, and also paper CB1, 1328, 1213/01, letter dated 14th June, from Mr. Wong Yuk-man on the policy on and waiting time for public rental housing allocation. Mr. Wong has proposed that in discussing the public rental housing allocation policy and waiting time, a subcommittee should be set up to look into the matter. So I would like to seek members' views whether you support the setting up of a subcommittee to study the policy on and waiting time for public rental housing allocation. And I would like to invite the officials into the room and seek their views as well. Concerning Mr. Wong Yuk-man's proposal, do members have any comments or questions, please? Do you agree? There is no objection then. Okay, then. If there is no objection, then I will ask the Secretariat to record this, and it will be in the next session. A subcommittee will be formed to study the policy on and waiting time for public rental housing allocation, and the waiting time of 3 years should not be exceeded. As for the terms of reference, do members have any comments, please? Or any suggestions from members, please? If not, then, well, we'll discuss that when we enter the next session. So at the next session, we will start with discussing the formation of this subcommittee, and we'll try to find out the ways to meet the 3-year pledge for the waiting list members. Item 3 now. Modular Flat Design for Public Housing Development of the Hong Kong Housing Authority. Paper CB1 1391/1213/01. The Administration's paper on Modular Flat Design for Public Housing Development of the Hong Kong Housing Society. May I welcome Ms. Ada Fong and also her colleague. I would like to ask the administration to take us through this paper. Is there a PowerPoint presentation? Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to brief you on the modular flat design. With limited resources, we want to make full use of land, and we move from site-specific design to modular flat design. There are there are 4 types of modular flat designs. We'll try to improve the detailed designs, and we'll launch new flat designs. We'll continue to collect the views of stakeholders and residents. I'll now invite the Chief Architect of the Housing Authority to brief you on the modular design flats. Yes, Madam Yang. She is the Chief Architect, Development and Standard Planning. Yes, please. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the panel. We are here to preview the modular flat design for public housing development. In the past decades, the HA has been providing affordable public housing through standard block design. Since the year 2000, because of limited land resources, and more complex sites were made available to PRH development, the Housing Authority has changed to specific site-specific block design. If you may refer to this, we are moving, or we have been moving from standard block design to site-specific design. In fact, we have gone through a four-stage evolution. The first is standard the block design. Second, site-specific design with non-modular flat design. The third stage is a site-specific design with modular flat design. And the fourth is HOS. Let me now move on to each of the approach. Standard block design has been adopted by us over the years. That includes the new cruciform, new harmony blocks. The last development that adopted the standard block design was Sao Mau Ping South, which was completed in 2009. Since the year 2000, the Housing Authority has adopted site-specific design so as to make better use of land resources and address land use constraints, so as to achieve making full use of developmental potential. We've adopted non-modular flat design. The earliest was phase 1 of Shek Kip Mei, and the latest was Sha Tin Pass Estate. In 2006, the Housing Authority started with a small flat design, 1P, 2P, and then 2P, 3P units. Kwai Lun Estate, Sin Ming Estate, and Yao Lai Estate were the first batch of housing estates adopting the small flat design. They were the predecessors of modular flat design. In the year 2008, the Housing Authority considered the experience collected over the years with regard to non-modular flat design and the functional but not luxurious design. And then in 2008 November, we adopted the modular design to make full use of land development potential.
In April last year, the Altau Kok Phase 1 lower estate was the first to be completed. In order to tie with the decision announced by the government to resume HOS and HA's objective in providing quality homes, HA developed another line of modular flats for new HOS developments. The first batch of HOS flats adopting this design will be available by the end of 2016. And we have got 4 modular flat designs, or MFDs, for 1 or 2P flat type, 2 or 3 flat type, 1B flat type 1 or 2B flat type 1. Well, in order to cater for the variance of the structural envelope at higher zones, we have rationalized the IFA range for modular flats. We have enhanced and further refined MFDs to strike a better balance amongst different factors, including the optimum use of valuable land resources, cost effectiveness, the needs and views of parish tenants expressed in survey, and also the wider use of mechanical building process, and also to achieve greater efficiency and productivity. We can then ensure that we are more efficient and more productive. At sites where noise pollution is serious, we have studied a number of noise abatement methods to address the issue, so that we can reduce noise by about 2 to 3 dBA. We have introduced a new family flat type with side windows. Changsha Wan Estate is a pilot project adopting this window design. HA keeps researching in design enhancements, and we introduce new design types to meet statutory requirements, tenants' needs, and specific site conditions. The following are the major enhancements we have introduced in recent years. First, we facilitate residence decoration with notional partition layout. Because PRH tenants and HOS owners may install block wall partitions or lay floor screeds, and they're required to comply with the Building Minor Works Amendment Regulation 2012. So we provide a complete range of notional partition layouts, and to remind tenants of the relevant requirements and restrictions after they've moved in. Second, we try to reinforce universal design for better environment and convenience. Although the design manual Barrier-Free Access 2008 only apply to non-domestic flat area, we've made reference to the manual and have increased the clear width of flat entrance from 750 mm to 800 mm, so as to enhance the living environment and provide convenience to residents. Other enhancements measures include the provision of a sunken shower design and more power sockets at 1 meter above floor level to make them more accessible to the elderly and disabled. We also enhanced the design of plumbing, drainage, and electrical installations for healthy living and easy maintenance. To prevent the spread of disease, we have adopted a new design of common W-trap system in all domestic flats, so that there won't be dried up floor traps. And we've also relocated the electrical consumer units from kitchen to the living area for better access for maintenance. And we've also provided more twin sockets to address users' needs. MFD can enhance the quality of living space. So the use of modular flats is widely welcomed by PRH tenants. We will continue to gauge the feedback of residents through our surveys, so as to facilitate continuous improvement in the design of MFD. We also welcome views from stakeholders in the construction industry in relation to the standardization and modularization in achieving better building efficiency and management on site. that. Members are invited to note the content of the paper. Thank you. Right, a show of hands, please. We'll see how many members are interested to ask questions. All right, I'll read out the order. Fernando Zhang, Kwok-hing, Leung Yu-chung, Leung Chi-chang, Tony Zhang, Christopher Zhong, KK Fong. Anyone more? Loai Kwok. 4 minutes each for Q&A, okay? Dr. Fernando Zhang. Oh, he's not here. Mr. Kwok-hing. Thank you. MFD are just like building blocks. They are prefabricated and assembled together when they are delivered to Hong Kong. I'd like to know whether this design has helped HA to save manpower, or to put it the other way, have some posts been deleted as a result of the use of MFD, or are more posts needed rather? I'd like to ask whether MFD, of course, they must be safe. I'd like to know more. What about the width or the thickness of the partition walls? I'd like to know whether they are just the same as non-MFD units. Will you easily hear a noise from the upper floor, or will you hear your neighbor arguing, quarreling? And secondly, we all like green design, building design. I'd like to know whether MFD has adopted green design features. Well, in terms of illumination and orientation of blocks, have these been taken into account at the point of construction? You say the phone? Thank you. Modular flats are different from prefabricated units. Prefabricated units can be used in modular flats as well as site-specific design with a non-modular flat design. As shown in the PowerPoint, you can see different colors. These flats are of MFD, modular flat design, and the areas in red are prefabricated units. They may be prefabricated external walls, and as for the partitions in green, they are built on site. And for the walls in yellow, well, we can have a prefabricated kitchen or washroom, but these are not used in all sites. When it comes to modular flats or MFD, well, in the past, we have non-standard designs, and there were different types of designs. So why do we use MFD? Because it will optimize our land resources, and will ensure that the interior of flats will be most useful or usable to tenants. So we regard MFD as the best design. The kitchen, the washroom, and the living space will be designed in a maximized manner. Regarding the MFD, they are like Lego blocks, and they are always site-specific. Depending on the size of the flat and also the noise from the surroundings, we have site-specific design. So we have not really saved any manpower resources. compared with the construction of non-modular flats. It's just that the units are much more usable to the tenants. Mr. Leung Yu-chung, I don't know what is the main difference between modular and non-modular flat designs, although you have just told us the main difference. Now, we are concerned as to the noise insulation features because we receive complaints that noise is a problem. Even if something dropped to the floor, or the upper floor tenant drags a chair, or kids are running around, would cause noise nuisance to the floor below. And I don't know whether you also consider the size of the flat. The greatest complaint is for 1P units, the kitchen and the washroom are a little bit bigger. Not very spacious, but they are bigger. As a result, the living area is relatively smaller, and they think that this is not the optimum use of space. Can this be improved? And thirdly, for the elderly, they don't want to use air conditioning. First, they have to pay for electricity, and it's not good for their health. In summer, they like to open the front door for good ventilation. So to the elders, good ventilation is most important. How can you improve the ventilation of 1P units for the elders so they don't have to use air cons or fans? They just want some breeze. So have you paid particular attention to this area? Thank you for your question, Mr. Leung. First, the design of flats. Regarding green features, MFD would certainly consider features such as illumination and ventilation. Many of these units have side windows. For instance, in our 1B flat type, next to or rather in the bedroom, there is a side window to enhance convection. So they are better than non-modular flat design, and they're even superior to harmony blocks. And as for whether there is optimum living space for 1P units, well, the area is 14 square meters. Compared with the 1P units in harmony blocks, the living area is even bigger than what it was like. And the ratio of the toilet and also the kitchen to the living area is smaller, and yet they're able to fulfill the barrier-free access requirement or universal design. So MFD is the optimal solution for ventilation, illumination, and universal use by the elderly and the disabled. So it's the best option, best solution. Noise insulation, the dragging of a chair, and also noise from neighbors. We have not increased the thickness of the floor slabs or ceiling slabs. No. We're not talking about the thickness, but noise insulation. Even if you have thicker walls, you may not have better insulation. Yes, we have research studies ongoing.
So what do you mean? Let them disturb by noise then? Now we are in compliance with the requirement of the buildings ordinance. This is the same as the private buildings, including thickness and other requirements. But I agree that we can consider enhancing the noise abatement measures. Maybe some noise abatement measures can be added. If I may follow up, when will you have an outcome from your study? We hope to have some solid results this year, and then we will share with you our design ideas. So the Secretary will mark it down. At the end of the year, once you have the outcome, please inform us. Mr. Leung Chi-Chang. Thank you, Chairman. This is about MFD. It is moving towards simplicity and cost-effectiveness. All the blocks in Tin Shui Wai, I think, belong to this. Starting from Tin Yul Estate, it has this design. There are quite a lot of shortcomings, but I think every design has its shortcomings. From the first phase till the latest design, and each design has its shortcomings, even if you've made improvements. Say Tin Shin Court. Now the block wall is made of bricks, which is not solid, and in fact you can't drill a hole into that. You can't drill a screw into the wall. So you better use concrete slab for the walls. Each design has its own shortcomings. Now, since the Deputy Director says that there is a review, what are you reviewing? If you are going to make improvements, then you need to take note of the following points. First, the wall, the partition wall. Now, the families need to hang things on the wall, say hang some cabinets on the wall. Concerning the modular blocks, they may have some problems, irremediable. Say, for example, in fitting the modular blocks, they have problems. Say, for example, water leakage. Say, in fitting the modular design, they need to inject more concrete in order to fill the gaps. The gap is as thick, as big as a human finger. You really need to supervise the workmanship. The design is more and more like the private buildings. Mr. Leung Yu-chung mentioned ventilation. There is no opening at the end of the corridor. With an opening, you're afraid of rain getting in. But if you block the end of the corridor, there is no ventilation. You really need to improve that, in particular in the blocks or in the floor levels when there are many elderly residents. If ventilation is good, the elderly don't want to have air conditioning. You need to give her some time to respond to you. Yes, I've finished my questions. A quick reply, please. Now, concerning the partition walls, they are not in the MFD design. In the MFD, in fact, we use light concrete to do the partition wall. And if they want to use screws to fit the cabinets, they can use screws. That is a manual. If they follow the manual, they can do that. As for water leakage, I think it is not because of the MFD. In fact, in early days, when precast units were used, they were not done at the beginning. As for poor ventilation, we now have already improved ventilation. As for the balconies, it is very rare. Only in Sam Shui Po, a housing estate provides balconies as kind of window barrier, as noise barrier. Tony Chair, form, please be reminded that you only have 4 minutes for questions and answers. Modular design, flat design is to a certain extent a kind of standardization. Concerning modular and non-modular design, we are concerned about leakage prevention and noise abatement. I think there is a difference. I hope the administration can explain that. And also for construction speed, how much faster can you complete the blocks by using MFD? As for using MFD, there may be a lot of site constraints for the new sites, and MFD may not be applicable. So, if there are many site constraints, will you still allow non-modular flat design? Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the questions. My simple reply is that MFD and non-MFD are no different in terms of building standard, in terms of noise abatement, water leakage prevention, so on and so forth. If our study is successful, the measures may be helpful to reducing noise. But anyways, they comply with the same building standard. Whether a site can accommodate non-standard, non-MFD, every site can accommodate MFD to a certain extent. Say, this is to show you how the units can be assembled into MFD. It is applicable to sites of all shapes and sizes. It looks standardized, but individual sites can be optimized. Say, for example, 2-bedroom flats, the room can be moved forward or a bit. Say, for example, in the corridor, there may be the need of meter rooms, and the arrangement can be made, and there is flexibility. And the span of the unit is maintained. The size, therefore, for each unit is the size for each unit, basically, or each element is basically the same. This is a basic design, but it doesn't mean that we cannot have other kinds of assembling the units. What about the speed of building these blocks? It really depends on the number of stories. Whether it is MFD or not, and there is not much change in construction time. We adopt a mechanized approach, and we also use prefab units. The construction method is no different from ordinary building situation. If we use modular flats or design, we have economies of scale. The units can be prefabbed many units can be prefabbed in the firm, in the manufacturing, by the manufacturer. Christopher Chung. Well, the design of the housing authority doesn't have a human touch. Say in Choi Wan Estate, the unit is very long and narrow for 1P unit. Now for 1P, 2P unit, you can see that they are facing, the one side doesn't have any window, so you need to open the door. When we were young, whether it's type B, we have the windows, we have the high windows, and there is a corridor for ventilation. Now you have EMAX in each housing estate. Now, can you work through the EMAC, say for 3 months or 6 months, ask the representatives what are the problems, including the sound of moving chairs, the sound of spoons and chopsticks dropping on the floor.
實際出嚟未必得。咁你
Now you say you may help to improve that, but in fact that may not be possible. Many 1P, 2P units are occupied by elderly people. They need wider bathrooms, say for wheelchair user. An elderly is living in a unit in which the wheelchair cannot get into the bathroom, and the elderly has fallen many times. He or she asks for changing or widening the bathroom, but that has not been done. Now you have the EMAX. You can ask people and then change your design. Well, everything in answering Mr. Chung is positive. We have included many human touches. Quiet please, quiet please. The director is answering your question. As a 1P family, we have a corner window. Now, in the past, there were high windows along the corridor, but that is not in line with buildings ordinance. If you go to the new units, you will find that there is very good ventilation. And now you can visit our new sites. We have conducted microclimate study. We have done the calculations. They are in line with the ventilation requirement. They are much better. Now, whether the noise can be transmitted easily, I think the floor slab is thicker than the old design. In old housing estates, they have the problems. In the new housing estate, they don't have this problem, even if whether or not they have the modular flat design. As for the bathrooms and kitchens, they are wheelchair accessible. And if they want to add handles or bars, they can do so. This design is the best in terms of the design, usable living area, living space, and ventilation. As for noise abatement, even if the slabs have been thickened, and the noise can still be transmitted. When we have the site visit, please make an arrangement for us to look at this.
So we'll take a look at these features. Well, we are making arrangements, and when we're there, please have a wheelchair around, so we'll try. And please ask somebody to drag chairs or furniture on the floor above, so we'll see whether there is any noise. Mr. K.K. Fong, the Deputy Director referred to fabricated units. Are they made on the mainland? Can we have them made in Hong Kong so that we can have more jobs, more types of jobs remaining in Hong Kong? And also the use of materials. And, people are concerned about whether the materials can be reused or whether they are environmental friendly. Can they be reused after demolition? And have you ensured that the design is of low emission? I've been to the mainland and European countries. They're able to have one floor vacant. For social functions or even for gardening by tenants. And then on each floor, they also have space. For instance, on the third floor, there is an atrium which connects the third, the fourth, and the fifth floor for gardening, for growing trees and plants, so that tenants can use the area for planting, so they don't have to go to the park before that is feasible. Have we considered such things? Prefabricated units, in fact, we have not specified whether they should be made in Hong Kong or elsewhere. The contractor is free to choose. And is materials environmental friendly? Yes, we have that as far as possible. We try to reduce wastage on site. For instance, we have large molds, and we also have used mechanical plants, and also prefabricated units, so as to reduce wastage. Can they be reused or recycled? Yes, doesn't usually. And for low emission standards, we have a way of estimating the carbon footprint to ensure that the design of the whole PRH estate will be of low carbon footprint. We try to save water and energy, and try to be energy saving and natural resources saving. We have Kwok-hing estate in Kwok-hing. For every 3 floors, there is common space for the elders or kids to play and to do gardening. So it's a pilot project. We will check the response of users, and if it is welcomed by tenants, we will use it in other housing estates. So we try to advance with time and meet users' needs. Now, it is important. And of course, if at grade we have enough landscaped features, then it's the best place for residents to meet. Can we go and take a look at the Kwok-hing estate? Yes, please include that in our visit. Mr. Kwok, first I have to declare interest. I'm a member of the HA construction committee, or building committee, as well as the tendering committee. The turning of non-static design to modular flat design is a desirable change, because PRH sites are very small, and if we put a standard block design, sometimes it doesn't fit the site. It is good if we have MFD, and with the aid of computer software, we can then assemble the flats together so that the design will be both feasible and will be good to illumination and ventilation, and thanks to the assistance of computer technology. The committee has recently visited a factory of prefabricated units in Shenzhen and Huaizhou. I was able to discuss with the factory supervisor as well as workers. Now, objectively speaking, they told me that the specifications or requirements from HA were more stringent than those from the private sector, and then the accuracy would even be higher. And they have a special production line, a very big production line, to work for HA's orders. So I won't have any queries or suspicion about the quality of the flats. But the modules user-friendly, I think the details are crucial. For instance, the location of sockets. You can imagine these units are not very big, so where should the TV set be placed, and where will be the TV socket? The choice is limited. I'd like to know whether they have this all well thought out, so that tenants don't have to use extension cords, because that's rather dangerous and inconvenient. Since I still have some time left, I'd like to talk about the use of computer in design. I'd like to know the time saved in the whole design cycle. Ms. Fung, thank you, Mr. Low, for your questions and your deep understanding and appreciation of our production process. We require the prefabricated unit factories to have a separate plant for our products, for our orders. So the quality control is much stricter. And we use computer-assisted models as far as possible, so that we can have better ventilation and illumination and insulation. As regards sockets, we're grateful to residents and members of this council for your supervision. We have more twin sockets to provide more convenience to the residents, because more and more people, there are more electrical appliances, and people need to charge their mobile phones. And for TV sockets, we ensure that sockets are available on both sides, on both walls, because different people have different preference. Well, some tenants, well, in the past, people use gas cooker. Now they might use an electric stove. So we have we have adjustable heights for the stove, so the tenants can adjust to suit the stove they choose. Okay? Please be succinct. You've overrun. We have new facilities to make the units even more hygienic. For instance, we have the W-type water trap, and we've also electrical consumer unit located in the living area for easy maintenance. So we've been enhancing and improving our design of these facilities. All right, 3 more members in the first round. Mr. Wong, I may not be able to give you a second turn because we're going on a visit. Well, just 30 seconds will do. All right, I'll give you a minute afterwards. Mr. Raymond Wong. Well, I think you have been economical with your truth. For instance, I don't see the 4P units. Where can we find the 4P flat? Ms. Fung, please reply. Well, 1B flat type or 2B flat type can be for 4P persons. All right, 1B flat type, 2B flat type for 4 persons. Well, 1B flat type, the size is 30 square meters, so it could be for 2 to 3 persons. And also 2B flat type, the area is 36 square meters. It can be for 4P persons. All right, you say that there is a library of MFD as a production strategy for PRH. But I don't see the advantages or merits of MFD compared to standard block design. Well, illumination, ventilation, and the living area is more optimum. All right, para 6. For some PRH sites which are severely affected by noise, a number of noise abatement measures have been explored to address the issue. What if the noise abatement measures are not effective? What remedial measures do you have? The paper is silent on that. What if a window with a side window, the noise problem is not resolved? What will you do? Will you add noise insulation facilities, or will you compensate tenants for their loss? All right, because the devil is in the details, so you haven't given us details. And the width of the entrance to a flat has been increased from 750 mm to 800 mm to enhance the living environment and convenience of residents. But what about the common areas? Do you have additional facilities to enhance the convenience of the elderly and disabled residents? And in the paper, we frequently see the term site-specific design. Will you allow Ms. Fong to answer you first? No, I will ask all my questions first. You talk about site-specific design. Why not consider time-specific design? You want to maximize a site. You should also maximize the merits of a site. Dr. Sun Yat-sen would like us to maximize a person's talent and maximize the opportunities, so on and so forth. So site-specific is as a result of small floor because of small sites. So I learn. Well, if you don't allow her time to answer, it doesn't matter. Some of my questions have been answered. All right, the so-called site-specific design is exactly what 689 does when it comes to its housing policy. Lack of land resources and so forth, these are rubbish. All right, according to your paper, you have to resume the construction of HOS, but you don't have additional time for construction of HOS, so even if they're very beautifully designed, it's useless. So you have not considered the time. Mr. Leung Kwok-hing, not in the room. Mr. KK Film, you have 1 minute, 30 seconds. According to the housing department, the contractor will choose whether the prefabricated units will be made in Hong Kong or outside. Can the administration specify that they are made in Hong Kong? And as for type carbon emission, you have to give me the exact figures and give us a list of materials that can be recycled. Please give us a list. For instance, the wood or concrete or what? Please be brief, Mr. Feng, Ms. Feng. If the information is not available now, you can supply it to us later. In terms of noise insulation, I'm sure we've been effective because we have done a full-size warm-up. Well, you don't have to talk about insulation. And time-specific. No. Those are questions by Mr. Raymond Wong, not KK Films. No, you don't. You don't have to answer Raymond Wong's questions. Construction of prefabricated units. We do not specify where the contractor should procure their materials because of WO procurement agreement. We cannot require the contractor to order such materials in Hong Kong. But according to BEAM, well, if you want to attain 4-star award, then you have to ensure that the products are made within purchased within 800 radius of Hong Kong, and to get a 3-star within 500 radius of Hong Kong. All right, since we have a site visit lined up, if you still have questions, you're welcome to put your questions to the department when we go on the site visit. Thank you, Ms. Yang, and thank you, Ms. Ada Fung. We go on to the 4th agenda. The implementation of first-hand of residential properties first-hand sales ordinance and the work of the sales of first-hand residential properties authority. We have paper CB 1391/1230 administration's paper on implementation of the residential properties first-hand sales ordinance and the work of the sales of first-hand residential properties authority. And the second paper is from the Secretariat. Background brief on residential properties first-hand sales ordinance and the sales of first-hand residential properties authority. Paper 1391/1230-03.
建業先生佢係一手住宅物業銷售監管局專。
The first one is the commission, and the official is Mr. Eugene Fung, the commissioner, and then Madam Mao, the deputy commissioner. Mr. Fung, please. I'll just briefly report to members the implementation of the Residential Property First-Hand Sales Ordinance. It has been implemented for 2 months. We are here to update you on the implementation and also the work of the authority. With regard to paragraphs 18 and 19, let me provide you with the latest numbers. Since the full implementation on the 29th of April 2013 until the 1st of July, the sellers provided the details of 453 units in 6 developments. That is more than the cutoff date on the 20th of June. 180 first-hand property has signed provisional SNP, and then 105 units have signed the SNP. As at the 1st of July, 9 developments have provided the sale documents, including sales brochure, involving 1,430 flats, and these flats will soon be put up for sale. There are 69 developments which have been put on the information network and have started the account. And the sellers have the intention to sell these units. We will adopt a three-pronged approach to implement the ordinance that includes assisting the trade to understand the ordinance, and then followed up by public education. We'll check the documents and check on the offices and of the in assisting the sellers, architects, and lawyers to understand the ordinance. Before the implementation of the ordinance, starting from November last year, we have talked to the stakeholders. And before full implementation, we issued guidelines, practice notes, and also 90 FAQs. And before full implementation, we've organized 9 workshops. In June, we organized another round of workshops. Tomorrow, we'll have the last workshop. As for this round of workshops, we share with the trade, having checked the sales office and checked the sales documents, we share with them our views. As for public education, we have a network. We also have the first-hand sales of first-hand residential property platform. in which valuable information is available for prospective buyers. We have the guidelines, and we also have APIs. We also put up advertisements. In the past 2 months, we basically check all the sales brochures and price lists offered by the vendors, and we've inspected all the sales office mock-up flats, and also review the advertisements, and also the vendors' networks, vendors' websites. We have the view that basically the sales documents and advertisements are basically in line with the requirement of the law, and the mock-up units or show flats are in line with the requirement of the law. On one occasion or another, there were technical mistakes made by the vendors, but basically they were technical in nature, and they didn't prejudice the buyers. And we immediately made suggestions to the trade and the vendors, and they responded promptly to our advice. In the revised price list and sales brochures, they have made such amendments. And finally, we have to protect the interests of the prospective buyers, and we also make sure that the arrangement is reasonable. Now, if there is any breach that undermines the interests of the buyer, we will not condone this, and we may refer this case, where possible, to the DOJ for follow-up. But if we have the reason to believe that it's only an oversight or a technical breach, and it doesn't undermine the rights and interests of the prospective buyers, then we will communicate with the vendors. We'll ask the trade to rectify the mistakes. We think that is an acceptable approach. Have you brought along the pamphlets and notes and guidelines? So, we have not brought the booklets along, but I will send copies to members. Members who are in the line, Michael Tian, Wong Yuk-man, KK, Kwok, Tony Chair, Alan Leong. 4 minutes each, okay? Questions and answers. Michael Tian. Mr. Chair, my question is very simple. I just want to ask, this ordinance which regulates first-hand sale flats. Now, after they've constructed the buildings or the units, they may use some of the units for rent. They will let out some of these units. Now, say if they have A, B, C flats, they may sell all the A flats and B flats, and they left C flats behind. When they sell the C flats, they will have to redo the procedures for selling flats A and flats B. But in fact, they are selling flats C. And they have the real things. People can go to inspect the flats. They say if you don't know the size, if it is not appropriate to measure the size, you ask them to spell out the structure. That's okay. But how does it have to do with flats A and B? And if they have made some mistakes, then that will still be a criminal offense. But these mistakes are only related to flats A and B. So why you include the units that are not related to the units for sale? Mr. Fong. In fact, in the drafting, during the study of the bill, we did discuss the matter, and we did consider that. In respect of the sales brochures, it is based on a development, or it is based on a certain phase of a development. In other words, the sales brochure has to provide the information of a particular development or a particular phase in the development. The most important thing is to provide the layout plan of the units. The buyers want to know the overall situation of the development. As for the units for long-term letting, since the OP, occupation permit, has been issued, and if 95% of the units in the development have been let for 36 months or more, then when they sell those units, they are given the exemption. That's for the future. I'm talking about the situation before the implementation of the ordinance. And before that, they didn't need to do all these. But for the flats remaining, they may have just 1 or 2 units remaining out of 1,000 or 2,000. They still have to redo all these procedures. Can you give exemption to them? What's the purpose of having this arrangement? First, the units that have been let or they have been vacant. Let's talk about the flats that have been let. If they are selling the unit to the incumbent tenant and it is acceptable to the buyer, there is no need to issue the price list or the sales brochure. As for vacant units, there are units which have not yet been sold before the law comes into effect. These are the leftover units, maybe just leftover units of 1 or 2. That depends on the phase, on the phasing. I find it too troublesome. Why should you require that? That's written in the law. There must be a reason. Mr. Tian, please do not engage in direct exchange. Please speak through the chair. The legislative intent is that this will enable the buyers to know the whole the situation of the whole development, instead of just the situation of the leftover units. The decision was made after much thought. The law is a law. The authority has no power. There is no flexibility unless the law is changed. Please speak through the chair. I hope that you will speak through the chair. Otherwise, it will be difficult to take minutes. Now, Mr. Michael Tian, Mr. Wong Yuk-man, Mr. Michael Tian was not a member last year, and before the end of this term, when I was doing filibustering, which was much hated by you and much hated by the chairman, I very much wanted this bill to come into effect, to become law. It can protect the interests of consumers. It can combat the hegemony of real estate developers. On the 29th of April, this law commenced. Before that, the developers withdrawn their units and made rearrangements. That shows that if the law is not passed, these developers will try to cheat the consumers. And because of the law, they have to make an adjustment. Now, concerning the main function of the authority, among main functions of the authority, assist the buyer to understand the law review the sales brochure and information provided by the vendor, check the sales office and show flats, deal with complaints, and then public education. Since implementation, within a short span of 2 months, the Commissioner has already explained to us the sales situation. I want to highlight this point. In para 11, the authority is of view that the sales offices and show flats have generally complied with the requirements of the ordinance.
And a few examples were given. However, the examples did not address how the SRPA dealt with cases that have in general complied with the requirements of the ordinance. In general, that is very abstract. This is very problematic. I hope all sellers or developers will comply with the requirements of the ordinance, not just in general. Even if there is minor negligence, we must have a mechanism to warn them and to remind them. This is my view after reading a paper. So, Director, you don't have to answer, but you may if you like. But the following question, you must reply to it. According to media reports, most insurance companies are not able to tie in with the requirements and the new ordinance. They use the GFA instead of the net saleable area. So people have to pay more in order to have their flats insured. Well, after the ordinance comes into effect, GFA is not the basis used for calculating the area. Instead, the saleable area should be used. I think this is given rise to implications. So if you consider how you standardize different industries in the calculation of floor area to avoid confusion. Director, thank you. I will take the first question first. Well, let me use sales brochures as an example. The ordinance require that the vendor can only state the things required in the ordinance, but not those included, of the exception of relevant information. If information is known to the vendor but should be known to the purchasers, and such information might affect the future enjoyment of the units by the purchasers, then such information can be provided. The offences are regulatory in nature. The most sales brochures have followed quite strictly information required to be included in the brochures, but sometimes they have provided information not required in the sales brochures. Well, we are of the view that such information is not for promotional purpose, not for marketing purpose, and we have received views that there is no harm in providing such information in sales brochures. For instance, management fees. This information is not required currently to be provided in sales brochures. However, if this bit of information is provided, this is against the regulations. But I think it is reasonable. Even if this information is included, the vendor will not be prosecuted. That's why we say that they have followed or complied generally with the requirements of the ordinance, not 100%. However, such breaches have not jeopardized public interest, and it's not that the vendor has deliberately flouted the law. The ordinance has been in place for 2 months, and in June we had a meeting with READER. We had a frank exchange, and we commented on some of our observations. We will have more frequently asked questions to tell them what information should be included in the sales brochures and information that cannot be provided, and that such information can be provided in publications other than sales brochures. And regarding home insurance, yes, we have read from the media that home insurance premium is still calculated on the GFA basis. We can only first try to understand the situation from the insurance industry and tell them that for first-hand properties, using the saleable area as a basis for calculating the area. And Mr. Raymond Wong asked how to ensure that different industries will use saleable area as the basis. Well, the ordinance only authorizes to regulate the sales of first-hand residential properties. The unit price has to be expressed on the basis of the saleable area. But do you agree that there is a loophole here? I just quoted example of the insurance industry, and that is already one example. You cannot turn a blind eye to the situation. While you say that the ordinance will mainly regulate sale of first-hand properties, but once the ordinance is enacted, other industries there should be implications on other industries. Well, for banks, when they provide valuation, they will use the net or the saleable area as the basis of valuation. We do not see any inconsistency here, but we will explain our views to the insurance sector and tell them that first-hand properties will have their area calculated on the saleable area basis. Well, I've been very lenient. You've spent more than 8 minutes in Q&As, so you cannot ask further questions. Director, as chairman, I demand you to continue to actively follow up on the issue raised by Mr. Raymond Wong, that is inconsistency in the calculation of area of flats in different industries, such as insurance, home insurance, and also valuation by banks. Well, there should be consistency among different industries. Okay, please continue to follow up. Dr. Kwok-hing, thank you. Regulation of sales of first-hand properties, this is an important issue. But I'd like to talk about the investigation of cases. It took you 21 days to find out the causes. Why do you need so long? And I'd like to know whether there is anyone stationed at the sales office from your authority to answer immediate inquiries from prospective purchasers. Mr. Phil. Thank you. And whenever we receive an inquiry or complaint, we will handle the complaint at once, hoping that we can give a reply to the complainant as soon as possible. So 21 days is a performance pledge from the government. That is, we will reply or respond to a case within 21 days. Some of the inquiries are rather complicated. Some of the inquiries did not come from prospective purchasers or members of the public. Rather, they've come from individual vendors and also legal representatives of vendors. Usually, they have development ready to be put on the market, and they have some issues the DMC, the lease conditions, they have some reservations. Sometimes they would ask us whether that could be included in the sales brochures, whether it would be against the regulations, so on and so forth. Such inquiries are more complicated, and colleagues tried their best to answer those questions, and so handling of these inquiries usually takes longer. Usually, the inquiries do not stem from prospective purchasers or members of the public. The authority of the PRPA, where we have got a resource center, where we have booklets and also the nooks for prospective buyers of first-hand properties. Well, after this meeting, we can give you copies of our booklets through the Secretariat for your information. Whenever units of development are put up for sale, we will send men to inspect on a need basis. We are a regulator. It is inappropriate for us to send somebody there to provide support or inquiry service for prospective buyers. In fact, for all sales brochures, before the information is printed, there will be on the first page nooks for prospective buyers of first-hand properties. Our phone number, our address, our website are included there, and they can call us at any time. There are 6 developments being sold, and one is already completed flats. Last Saturday, when the development with completed flats started the sales, and there was balloting, well, our colleagues were there, and with the consent of one of the prospective buyers who got a lot, we went with him to inspect the flat, or to survey the flat he preferred, and the developer or the vendor welcomed our move. So we will try our best where resources permit. I have no more questions. Mr. Tony Jie. Thank you, Chairman. The ordinance strengthens the regulation of sales of first-hand residential properties so that we can have better protection for prospective buyers. Because usually prospective buyers are individuals, but because of this, well, even before I became a legislator, I already said that the sales of second-hand residential properties should be regulated. Originally, there was a confusion. It's true that saleable area is now available for second-hand residential properties. Now, it's strange that you do not have a definition for a floor area. So, of course, this is not within the portfolio of the director here. Any legislation should not stifle the development of business or commercial activities. The regulation of the sales of first-hand residential properties has just started. I hope that there can be good communication. You should set up a working group without jeopardizing the interests of purchasers. You should improve the requirements.
Say, for example, the sales brochures have to be made available at least 24 hours before the sale. Now, this doesn't have a problem with the big developers. The small and medium-sized developers will have a problem. It is very costly. We really don't want to sell the units at midnight. And that is not. It is not good for the buyers. Now, if people will not go to get a sales brochure in the middle of the night, so you really need to adjust that. As for the network, as for the internet, the provision information on the internet, you need to pay attention. There are hackers. When somebody hack the website, then the vendor will be held liable. This is also not good for small and medium-sized developers. They don't have so many technical people looking after the websites. I hope the Commissioner will look into that. Although only 2 months have elapsed since the setting up of the authority. But these are the problems, and I hope you will be able to deal with these problems while upholding the major principles under the ordinance. Mr. Fong. We have been talking to the stakeholders, including the REDA, the Law Society, and the 2 other professional bodies, and the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors and Hong Kong Institute of Architects. We've listened to their views, and we've explained to them the legal requirements. I'd also like to take this opportunity to explain the 24-hour rule. I read it from the press. There was quite a wide reporting of this. The 24-hour means this. Within the 7 days before the sale of the property, the seller or the vendor has to provide the sales brochures, hard copies, and also the soft copies on the designated websites. In deciding, and this is to be, this provision has to be unceasing. And in considering whether it is unceasing, we consider all the factors. It takes into account whether the traffic on the website is too high, or whether there are uncontrollable factors like hacking. And for the provision of hard copies of sales brochure, we also take into account the factors contributing to the availability of the hard copies. As for the incident mentioned by the media, that's about the electronic version. Over a long period of time, people cannot log on to the website. It's not about a few minutes or a few hours. Say, for example, on the 1st of May, the vendor has already uploaded the soft copy. We were able to access this on the 2nd or 3rd. All dates are fictitious. On the 3rd day, or 3rd of May, we were unable to enter to access that website. And because of that, we send a reminder to the vendor in calculating 7 working days, making available the sales brochure. The calculation will have to be made anew from the day of cessation when the brochure is not made available to the public through the internet. When we enforce the law, we will be reasonable and fair-minded. If it is just in a few hours, there is no access to the website to obtain the sales brochure, and then we will immediately come to the decision that the documents are not available around the clock. The next is Mr. Alan Leung. Chairman, I have an interest in asking this. I want to put this question to the Commissioner. He's just been working in that hot seat for 2 months. Now, he said that some lawyers consult the Commissioner or the authority on certain information to be presented in the sales brochure and whether certain information should be included in the sales brochure. I want to ask the Commissioner, how do you assess your own position? On one hand, you may be seen to be working for the real estate developers. You may even be the shield of real estate developers because you have given your advice. In the future, when you receive complaints, then you will be put in an embarrassing situation. You have given your advice to the developer. But some first-hand buyers are not happy with that piece of advice. How can you deal with that? The authority, in receiving such inquiries, we are concerned whether there is any conflict of roles. And there is also the second concern, which is fairness. When we give advice to a particular law firm or particular vendor, then what about others? Usually, we look at whether the question has been answered very clearly in the ordinance, or whether it has been addressed in the practice notes or FAQs or guidelines. If it's about the guidelines, which guideline? If it's about practice notes, which practice note? Now, among these documents, if there are certain issues, rare issues, which have not been addressed, and if we believe that this is a real question or real problem, and if it is not limited to a single vendor, then we will issue we'll issue an FAQ, or then we'll inform the vendors. The guidelines or FAQs will not be case-specific. We will address the general situation. Say, when you encounter such a situation, you should respond this way. And we also seek legal advice from the DOJ. And before we issue the guideline or the FAQ, then we will then reply to the individual vendor. We'll make sure that there is no role conflict, and there will not be any embarrassment in future law enforcement. I believe this is a positive way to address the real problems or questions encountered by the vendors and the stakeholders. And this approach has been operated for 2 months, and it is quite okay. And we've got the support of the vendors and the stakeholders. Thank you, Chairman. I think the Commissioner has thought through the issue of role conflicts. Now, in 4F, paragraph 4F, the role of the authority includes the maintaining of the sales first-hand residential properties electronic platform. I want to know, and also registers of transaction. I want to know what is the progress. On the 29th of April, when the law comes into effect fully, it has been open to the public. It's www.slpe.gov.hk. The vendor when the vendor is ready, since he has already opened an account, he can log in with his password and then upload the sales brochure and price list or registers of transaction onto that platform, or SRPE in short. Members of public will see that within seconds. Anyone accessing this platform can go to the index and see the documents uploaded, whether the property has started selling or not. As long as the documents are uploaded, they will be made available. The platform has been operating smoothly. So when the notes or pamphlets come before us, we will see that easily. But we don't have the pamphlets today, booklets today. Mr. James Toh, my apologies. I'm late because the security panel has just finished its meeting. I want to ask the question of 724. Say, will you consider operating hours? The operating hours don't need to be 24 hours per day. Your answer, of course, is you need to change the law. When the law was passed, we won't be able to go into such details. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. If they sell their units in the late evening, they must have these sales documents available on site. Do you really need 7 times 24? Now, if you require them to make available the documents 24 hours before the date of sale, that's still reasonable. But I really can't see why you need 724, this 724 requirement. Say, suddenly there may be the imposition of a certain tax. Then maybe before 12 midnight, many people will flock to buy their flats just to jump the queue before the tax hike. Mr. Fong, concerning the requirement of the law, Section 25(1) requires that at least 7 days in advance of the sale. It didn't mention others. The implication implies the provision of such documents without ceasing within the 7-day period. We explain to the REDA or the vendors in general. As for the placement of copies, of the hard copies of the brochure, they don't need to be placed in the sales office only. They can place it somewhere else in order to meet the requirement. They don't need a designated person to make arrangements for the distribution of the sales brochures. Having heard our explanation, they think that in terms of resources, they are capable of meeting that requirement. Say, for example, they don't need to distribute it at the sales office. Say, the developer, maybe a self-service vending machine, not so advanced. Not so advanced. Please talk through the chair, okay? Say, if the office, in the office or on the ground floor of the office of the developer, a pile of a dozen of brochures are placed there for public access, that's still acceptable. They think that problem can be solved. Chairman, if I may ask this question. Yes, please, Mr. Toh.
Well, they've complained to us that say in the middle of the night, they have a few sales brochures placed there, but they've all been snatched, and then somebody comes in, and since there is no sales brochure, they take a photo and complain to you. Will you take action? We've explained to reader we will consider the reasonableness. So long as the developer can prove or the vendor can prove that he has exercised due diligence to ensure that there will be a continuous supply of sales brochure available there. But perhaps on a particular date, the response is very good, and for a short time there is no sales brochures available. We will accept such an explanation. We will use the principle of reasonableness in considering whether they have breached the regulations. Reader, having heard our explanation, understand that we will be reasonable. We are not so rigid as to require their sales office to be open around the clock for placing these sales brochures there, so long as they can make available the sales brochure or a sample of it on a continuous basis. Now, if they're out of stock for a while, will we calculate the 7 days anew? Well, we talk about where resources permit for them. Well, I raise this concern because you have to rely on private developers for housing. You can't just have HOS flats. If because of the unreasonable implementation of the law, they're not able to provide private flats for sale, this is not the intended spirit of the ordinance. On this basis, I believe there is room for improvement. Regarding the other requirements in the ordinance, I do support you in insisting on the details to be included in the sales brochures. Yes, we appreciate that the purpose of the ordinance is to ensure transparency of information and to ensure it's fair to the prospective purchasers and to protect public interest. However, we will bear in mind that we should not undermine the supply of public or private flats. Well, whether there is a technical breach of the ordinance, we will use a very fair and manner in dealing with such irregularities. We will exercise reason. So reader is well aware of our position. Any other questions? Mr. Phil, the ordinance has only been in place for 2 months. That is not too long. I hope you can step up publicity so that the public will be more aware of this. Mr. James, so please stay on for a little while. I hope there can be a review 1 year after the implementation of the ordinance. Members, this is already the last meeting of this legislative session. I'm very grateful to members for your participation and for the smooth running of meetings. Since we do not have any OB items, I adjourn the meeting here. Thank you very much.